Yeah, I'm ready.
And what do you do?
My name is John Wineland, and I teach embodied men's work and sexuality. Embodied men's work is the practice of taking that which is ethereal, like a concept like consciousness, and making it real through the body. So rather than just, sit in a meditative practice, which is awesome, I teach it, I do it. It's about taking that consciousness and making it real in the body. So I feel it and everybody feels it. So like if a conscious man walks into the room, everybody just feels like, wow, this guy's practiced consciousness through the body so much that he actually feels it. So that's one area. Another area of embodied men's practice is this idea of bringing other concepts like fierce love or depth or all these things that are sort of, we kind of know them when we feel them, but we rarely practice them in a way that animates them in our body or that installs them in our nervous system. So much of embodied men's practice is about installing core masculine concepts, depth, integrity, consciousness, fierce love, all of those things in the body so that we can access them at any time we want to. Bring them to our love, bring them to our purpose, bring them to a moment.
And how does that differ from like what we think of masculinity to be, like John Wayne or like the classic example of masculinity?
Yeah. So there's a lot of toxic masculinity, right? There's been tens of thousands of years of toxic masculinity. And the dirty little secret is that masculinity is actually the capacity to do nothing impeccably. The more masculine I'm being, the more rested as consciousness I am, the less I'm sitting in a monkey mind, the more my body's still, the more I'm like the reason like a rock or like a mountain, right? The reason why those things occur as masculine is because there's not a lot of doing. There's more being. And so masculine practice, the old school, we're talking tantric, Taoist, Hindu, like old school masculine practice was actually about resting as consciousness so deeply that you didn't need anything. You didn't need more money. You didn't need a woman to approve of you. You don't need anything. It's all whole and complete as is. It has nothing to do with how tough you are, how fierce you are, now from that place, you can choose to be fiercely loving. You can choose to be deeply on purpose. You can choose, but it's coming from the deepest place. It's not coming from some idea of what you should be doing. It's coming from infinity, right? Or from the depth of your heart, depth of your soul.
So it sounds a lot like almost stoicism, but also like this idea of being grounded rather than being reactionary. Is that something?
I wouldn't call it stoic at all. I mean, I think the more you the more you rest as consciousness, the more you feel everything. Right? The more that I'm slowing my mind, stilling my body, deepening my breath, the more I can feel the space, the more I can feel, I can feel a partner, I can feel what's happening. I can feel actually life a lot more. It's like if you walk through the woods and you walk at a really brisk pace, you don't feel the woods, but if you slow it down, like Indian scouts used to walk like very slowly so that they could actually feel what was happening. So the slower we, in essence, if we can slow ourselves down, we'll feel so much more. And from that place, we can make decisions versus moving from the place of boom, 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 monkey mind, gotta do, gotta be, gotta make more money, which is antithetical, I think, to masculinity, even though it's not often heard that way or described that way.
Can you describe that feeling of consciousness, like the ability to feel the room? Like what is that? What does consciousness feel like?
Well, that's like the billion-dollar question. The way it occurs to me, it might occur differently to other men, but the way it occurs to me is a resting. There's two parts to it. One is the part of me that rests as that which never changes, right? And while the other part of me, my body mind, right? So there's my awareness, resting is that which never changes, and my body mind so awake that it feels what's happening in the room. So it's this feeling of being both tethered to infinity and feeling wide.
Okay.
And you can see it. If I put you in a room with a bunch of men, or women and men, they could actually start to feel when a man's awareness and capacity to feel got wide, and it would make an impact. Yeah.
So it would be like a guy walks into the room and he's got like this aura about
Mm-hmm.
like a presence,
Mm-hmm.
or how would you describe like that energy when that guy that with a lot of masculinity or walks into a room?
Yeah, I would. The masculinity is just such a loaded term, and what we're really trying to describe is like this, yin and yang, Shiva and Shakti, like these concepts that have been around, alpha, omega, that which never changes, and then everything else that's changing. So in my definition, that which never changes is the masculine, and this is straight up David Data 101 for your listeners that want to read that. Everything else that's constantly changing, my thoughts, the room, energy, that's the feminine. So the more along the spectrum of resting is that which never changes, is the more I'm in my essential masculine. And it's hard to, it's like I'm trying to take words now and describe something that's indescribable, but most people know when they feel it.
Can you kind of illustrate like what it looks like in your posture or something like that?
Am I not doing that now?
No, you
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
are,
yeah.
Is there like a more characterized or?
No, I think it can be. I was actually talking to one of your assistants here, and he asked about meditation and doing stuff, and you can actually be in that while you're playing tennis. You could make tennis a meditative. You can make sex. I mean, ultimately, that's the real benefit, right? Is if you can bring that connection to consciousness while you're having sex, a woman will feel you, your partner will feel you like heavier, deeper, fuller. And so the way that I always hear it described is there's sort of a thump, right? Like that when a man like drops in, that's where the term dropping in is. There's like a thump, like he's resting as that which never changes, and that thing is heavy. Like it's just weighty, and it's also blissful. Like when I meditate, and I actually hit that place of no thought, feeling my inner soul, call it a soul, call it consciousness, whatever you want to call it, the divine. There's a like a freedom, there's like a liberation, and the masculine is always seeking freedom in some form. The feminine, constantly, feminine in you, feminine in me seeks love, feminine in a woman seeks love. The masculine in me, the masculine in you, that part of us is always seeking freedom. Yeah. So the ultimate freedom is I'm consciousness. I don't need anything.
What are some of like the misconceptions that people think of when they hear the word men's work, like Tom Cruise and Magnolia or something like that? What do people think it is, and what is it really?
Yeah. Well, there's lots of different kinds of men's work, right? There's some that's therapeutic, like meaning I'm going to go out and work out my stuff with other men and be witnessed by other men, and that's beautiful, and that's some of what I do. And, but the men's practice we're talking about now is sort of essential spiritual masculine practice, which is how do I, with other men, tune myself to that which is infinite, right? So much so that I'm deepened by it. It's like a yoga, right? It's like, it's not something, it's something that actually can be practiced and deepened, and there's a breath to it, and there's a mudra to it. The mudra usually involves a straight spine, a tucked chin, a soft belly, and so whether you're Zen or Kundalini meditation or Vipassana meditation, there's that kind of mudra. Oftentimes you'll see this, right? And that gets your body to be a container for consciousness. And that is the essence of masculine practice as I like to teach it spiritually. But then there's the whole range of the more men spend time together with men, the more that they get in touch with their own masculinity, their own masculine essence. So I would prefer to use masculine essence versus masculinity, because the essence is kind of the core of us as alpha, a woman has masculine too. Just her essence, most women's essences, not all, but most women's essences are feminine, meaning that their essence is more associated with love and light, whereas a masculine essence is more associated with consciousness and depth. Right? Yeah. So men's work, a misconception at least that I see, is that there's something to do, right? There's actually more to do, whereas the essence of masculine practices, I see it, is more about resting as, let's see how I would put this, it's more about being than doing, right?
Like the grounding, like that thought that you're talking about.
Yeah, like a thump. Like if I said right now in this moment, if I said, let's all of us, we're all men in this room, like just feel death. Like something just happened in the room, right? There was like a deepening of the room because we're feeling that which is never changing, that which is, death is something that never changes. Life is constantly changing, expanding, but death, non-existence, never changes. So, I don't know, I felt it.
Let's talk about why we need men's work now. In this culture, maybe where masculinity has gotten lost or confused.
That's a great question. So this is the first time in history where we've actually lost the rituals that helped boys, make that journey into manhood. And for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, boys were always taught that there was a certain rite of passage that they took to become men. And some of these were quite brutal, but some of them really served a purpose. And the thread that's really important is that there was the capacity, learning the capacity to live with discomfort while staying open. So if I was a sun dancer, I'd be hanging from a tree, dealing with that pain, but keeping my heart open, keeping my body open. Or in the Amazon, they'd sick a bunch of ants on me, and I would be, almost, I have to, two things happen. I have to face death, and I have to deal with pain without closing. And those elements have kind of been lost in the last 100 years. So men's work, good men's work, emulates that in a way that is, not that we, sick ants on you or, stick a, hook through your chest, but there's a certain capacity, a yogic capacity, a physical practice, where men learn the yoga of actually staying open and dealing with discomfort, whether it's sitting in a chi generator pose for 15 minutes while keeping your heart open and breathing, or some kind of sitting posture, or some kind of work where the masculine deals with pain. So good men's work definitely has an initiatory piece, like the Mankind Project, for example, or certain other kinds of men's work. But the other thread is what we were talking about earlier, which is the spiritual masculine, which is finding the part of me that never changes and then bringing that into my sex, into my life, making my life decisions from that place. From that place, I'm going to be making much deeper decisions rather than, letting myself be swayed by something that my monkey mind is telling me I need to do.
And how does that differ from the characterization of like Dirty Harry or this extreme examples of masculinity in our culture? Macho men.
Yeah. Well, there's a certain toxic masculinity that is about, literally killing, raping, pillaging, taking, right? We've all seen that, and the planet has seen that. And thank God that's coming, that's at least out in the open now. But there's a piece of that is important. Like a lot of men have thrown away their killer, right? The part of them would actually kill to protect a woman or protect their community or kill to create something in the world. I mean, not literally kill, but like energetically kill. And so cultivating that without closing your heart. So the difference, at least in my work, is that how can you kill with an open heart? How can you kill, meaning claim, protect, honor the part of you that's a warrior without having a closed heart? So Dirty Harry's heart was pretty much closed. John Wayne, it depends, but the modern killer has been created with a lack of heart. And the capacity to do both really is something that can be worked on, trained. Like, I can feel like I love you so much, man, I'm not going to let you pull that shit. Well, that's me bringing my warrior because of love. So good men's work is about cultivating both deep heart and deep fierceness, right? Which is different than, Hollywood, tough men.
Go beat them up.
Beat them up. But even all of those archetypes, we're talking about archetypes, all those archetypes had some part of heart, otherwise they wouldn't have been a hero. Like Dirty Harry had a good heart. And
there's a sense of duty or right and wrong.
Yeah.
Rather than being like just, the chaos for chaos' sake.
Yeah.
And fighting's sake.
Yes, and
purpose.
there's a depth to it that's been missing, and there's a bit of a practice. So I think Good Men's work puts a man in touch with that part of himself, but in service to something greater than himself, right? So it's not for his needs or what he wants. It's like he's actually cultivating the part of him that is a warrior, that is a killer, that is a protector, that would, that energy that.
Like manning up.
There's a certain kind of manning up to it. I mean, but manning up usually is a challenge. This is coming again from that deeper place. Like there's a part of almost every guy I know that can feel the part of his ancestors that had to kill to feed the family, right? Or protect the community, right? That part of us is been lost in the last 100 years. We don't need to do that. You and I, sitting here in Venice, we don't need to cultivate that. However, that energy is still needed. I mean, the feminine craves that energy. The world still craves that energy, that part of us. And we actually, when we disassociate or cut that part off, we lose something really crucial. Yeah.
How does meditation come into your practice, in the work that you do?
Yeah. Well, most of us aren't trained to find that part of us that never changes, right? Find the witness, find consciousness. And so the first piece of masculine practice, in my opinion, should be that. Like, that's why I always start by teaching meditation, because from that place, my decision-making process is coming from a depth that it wouldn't be if I was just trying to get something or create something. So rather than me make a to-do list, for example, talking about daily life, I'll get up and I'll sit and I'll just wait to feel what's inspired in me to move that day. I know what I have to do, right? But rather than me like knock it off a checklist or an asana app, right? I'll sit and feel that part of me that's still, and then from that place, let something move through me. From there, I feel more productive. I feel less antsy. I feel more dropped in, and I'm able to bring that to my day. Right? So meditation, I think, is the key. It's the keystone, really, of all other practice. And so, men should meditate, in my opinion, so that they can have one foot or a line. They can always have a line in the infinite. Because when we're cut off from that, we tend to get drawn into life's dramas and the feminine's dramas, and we get groundless, right? But when you're tethered to that which is unchanging, there's a certain solidity that you get to cultivate and keep for your own, no matter what's happening.